Hello, everyone. It is February 26th of 2024. This is going to be a using custom reports video. I'm using the Library Network's account so you can see exactly what public libraries would see or the co-op directors would see when they use the tool. If we were to use my account, things would look a little bit differently. So we're going to start right off, and the first thing you're going to do is log in. After that, you see the welcome the library network. It'll say welcome Alden District Library, welcome whoever you are. When you log in, you should see your name right here under welcome, just like you see it when you fill out the annual report every year. So from here, I'm going to go directly to reports, and this is going to take us to the Manage Reports site. This is where we start building a report, so you can access reports you've already built. So what we're going to do here is you can see that they already had a report folder, a report templates, and a published report. Everyone should have those three in addition to this plus sign, so you can create a new folder of your own. What I've done is came in and I created a Joe test folder. So the owner of this account can decide to eliminate the folder, eliminate the reports in it, or move them, or whatever they'd like to do. But I didn't want to mess with stuff that they had already created. If you were looking at my site, you'd see that I have about 15 tabs here. The number of tabs, you can have as many as you'd like. The way I do it, because we have multiple staff that can go in and use the report creation features, they'll have their own tabs. So Claire would have her own tab. Michelle would have her own tab, So we're going to do this Joe test folder. I've already started a report. I haven't put anything in it yet, though, so let's get going. We'll get right in here. And I'm going to click on unnamed report. Okay. So because this is the cooperative, I started with Library Cooperative Annual Survey, but this video can be used by anyone because the tools are all going to be the same for the co-ops, for any BTBL members, for any public libraries using the software. So let's go with public first. So I'm going to, down here in collection, I'm going to choose Public Library Survey. And every time it'll reload the page. So right now we're going to do 22-23 because the 23-24, the data we just collected, is not properly vetted yet. So I'm working with that data and it's just not ready for release. So this is the most current, the 22-23. And the first thing I'm going to do as I move through here is I'm going to name this report something. So we're going to call this salary benefit comparison. And of course, you can go back and edit this at any time. So I'm going to save it there. So you notice that when I changed the dropdown and when I changed the period, the report refreshed itself automatically. If you haven't saved it before you put this report name in, you could put the report name in and then not go down here and save. When it refreshes, it's going to go back to unnamed report. So make sure, just for your own organization, name your reports, then save it. So now when it refreshes, it'll keep the salary and benefit comparison name. I chose this because this is one of the most popular reports I get requests for from library trustees, library directors. This one happens all the time, so I'm going to show you how to build a quick and easy salary comparison report. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to leave it on table. So we do have lots of different report types to choose from here. We'll start with table. I'll show you some of these others as we move through today. Here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is for locations, I'm going to click on the filter. And you see there are 413 selected peers. We have 396 libraries currently. Well, 397, but our newest library hasn't been around long enough to complete a data set. So right now we're going to 396 for the data. So 413 is too high, and it's in there because I'm going to select all of these. Whoop. I'm going to select all of these. Come on. There we go. I'm going to take off library mission. We don't want to see us. And I'm going to scroll down and get rid of the libraries that are closed. Now you only have to do this once. There we go. There's Detour. Get them off of there because now they're under Superior. And get rid of all these folks. Now these guys are still in the collection because depending on how far back you go, and I believe I've got 27 years worth of data, some of these will be active and we don't want to lose them. So rather than remove them completely, we just put a Z in front of them. So now I've got all of those, and I'm going to scroll back up here. That scroll bar is a little bit hidden on the right-hand side. And you can see there's the total results. I've selected 396. That's all of them. And I'm going to hit apply. And I'm going to add that filter to the report by clicking on the yes button. So now you see this filter line was blank. Now it's got all the libraries listed in it. That's where I'm going to start, and I'll save it again. Never hurts to save your report. So now since I'm doing a salary and benefit comparison, and if you're familiar with the annual report, the salary information on the annual report, we're asking for data that's occurring as of the date folks are filling out the report. So it's all the same time period, somewhere between that October 1 and February 1 open and close date for the annual report. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure to add some filter fields. So if you look here under groups, the way the groups are laid out is exactly the way they appear on the annual report state aid application. So I'm going to go into group 1 or part 1, I'm sorry, part 1, and I'm going to grab, first of all, I'm going to grab library class, and I'm going to grab cooperative and county. And I'm doing this because I want a few fields to sort from for this salary report. I don't want to try to avoid looking at all class 3 libraries or all class 4 libraries. That doesn't take into account different situations and vastly different regions of the state. So we want to narrow it down a little bit more. So I've got those 3 selected right now. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here, and you'll see that you've got the box scroll, but you've also got this other scroll bar. The scroll bar to the far right is the one that gets you to the bottom of the box quicker. And you see I've got add here. So I'm going to click add, and you're going to see those 3 performance indicators or data elements or answers to questions. Performance indicator is, the word we use. Those are going to be added to the report. You can see it's taking its time to add those right now. There we go. So I've got those 3 data elements added to the report I'm creating. You'll notice on the right-hand side, there's a sequence number here, 1, 2, or 3. So if I were to just run this report by column, county would be first, then cooperative, then library class. What it doesn't show you is when you run this, and I'll show you this right now, it's going to show you the name of the location as well. And you don't have to add that onto the report as a data element. That's just going to show on its own. So I've hit run. So this will just take a second. There we go. Okay, see 396 respondents and our county count. So you have these little icons at the bottom here that'll give you a quick and dirty chart. So if we click on that, it's just going to list all of the libraries and what county they're in. I close that. It'll be the same thing with the co-op they're a member of in alphabetical order. Get rid of that. These icons do become useful when they're returning data. Not so much the list. I don't really use that too often, but if you wanted it, you could click on it and then right click here. Whoops. And print it or save it for your own purposes. That's fine. Here's one this is going to show me by percentage where the libraries fall in terms of class size. So click on that. And there you go. So 11.4% of our libraries are class 6, 11.1 are 5s, on and on. And with this chart and then the little box chart down here, you can download these as PNG, download them as PDFs. So you've got some options there to play with. So I'm going to close this. And right here, you've got an Excel icon. So what you can do is it will let you download this into Excel. So I clicked on it. There it is up top. And when I open it, I get a message. Now, it's not showing right now because it's on the other screen for me, but the message is the file format and extension of name of the report don't match. The file could be corrupted or unsafe unless you trust the source. Don't open it. Do you want to open it anyway? The answer is always yes. We've always had that message pop up since we started using the tool. We've never had a problem. So let me show you what that looks like when it opens up. There you go, fairly basic. We don't really have any of the good stuff on here that makes it the report we're after yet. So let's go back to report settings and add the fields that I typically use to make a salary and benefit comparison. So first of all, I'm going to go into this groups up top here, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to want capital income. And I want that because it's got the population in it. So yes, I've got the library class, which I can filter by class size, but again, I don't like doing salary reports where you're just using class size. So there we go. We go down here, there's total population, so we can narrow that down even further than just by the class size if we need to. There we go, that's in there. The next field I'm going to do, and all I'm doing is just clicking and then adding at the bottom, and I can do multiple fields at a time, and I'll show you that. So we're going to go back into operating income because I'm going to want the total operating expenditure because that's a useful sort field as well. Here we go. This is all of legal service area, then subtotals for legal service area. Then you have the contract municipality and the subtotals for contract municipality, just like on the annual report. So now we're going to go down to C, operating income summary, because that's the total of all of the service areas together. So all I want from here is total operating income right now. I can certainly choose some of these other fields if I wanted to, but we're going to do a high level one. So I'm going to add total operating income. Now I'm going to scroll back down. You see it's here. Now something you might notice is capital income on your report. It looks like it's below operating income, but if you come over here and look at the sequence is going to build based on when you add an element, but it'll show up over here in the order it is on the report. So total operating income comes before total capital income on the report, which is why you're seeing total operating income above total population served. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to grab expenditure. Definitely want those. And because I'm doing a staff salary and benefit comparison, I'm going to want the staff expenditures, the benefits expenditures, salary expenditures, and the total operating expenditures. So let's go down here. I want all of this. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hold down shift. And I'm going to click on all the way through total staff expenditures. And I'm going to add that. There we go. And then I'm going to go down. And of course, you could compare by all of your operating expenditures, but we're going to limit it to just the staffing. And then I want total operating expenditures. There we go. Okay, so we've got those in. And now we'll go down to that salary section. So just scrolling through here until I get to salary and benefit information in part 14. I'll click on that. Now, something we've added last year. So we were looking at trend data. If you wanted to build a 5-year report, you couldn't quite use some of these elements because they're newer than that. They're only 2 years old. They wouldn't make it through the 5-year. And if you were to try to do a trend report using 5 years of data, you get some blanks until the data element picked up on the survey. So I'm going to grab all of this. So I selected the top one here. I'm going to go all the way through. And I'm going to keep going because this is all the MLS fields. Now we've got the same fields mirrored as non-MLS. I want all of those. And I want the support staff. So I want all of these guys too. So I'm going to hold shift. So that grabbed all the way from the top to the bottom of the wage information. So you see this report is already getting quite long. We have 84 elements in it right now. So let's go down and get those benefits. So there's the director's benefits, the full-time, and the part-time. So I've selected the top one under director health insurance. I'm gonna hold down shift and I'm gonna add. So that's pulling in the directors, the full-time staff, the part-time staff, all benefits, which makes for a very long report. But depending on the class size you're looking for, you may not have much data in the MLS, or you may not have, if you were just looking at directors and it was above a class 4, you might not have anybody under non-MLS. So we've got all of that information in 123 different PIs. So what I want to do here is, because I don't want to look at everybody. I mean, I can. So let me run that, and it's going to show all 396 libraries. And there we go. All 396. They've all got charting. Problem is, when you have a sample this big, let's look at some of these charts. They are not going to be that useful. So click on this, and with that many people in here, that's quite the chart. When you start getting down to, and we're still in the millions here for your total operating income, and it's very tiny. We're rapidly getting to useless here. So you definitely want to limit your sample. And with the salary, with this particular report, I do limit it quite a bit. So let's just close that. Go back to report settings. So over here, you see these boxes. When you have a single box, that means there's going to be a drop down associated with that you can sort by. Kent County. There we go, all 4. You see, when we look at this, we see that for Grand Rapids Public Library and Kent District Library, they have more information in their MLS job categories. Okay, get out of here. Let's grab all. Let's remove this filter, and it'll erase that. So now it'll be grabbing all 396 libraries again. If I wanted to look at libraries by cooperative, I could go in here, and let's select TLN. It's only fair since we're using their account right now. So I'll run this. And there's the 73 locations TLN that reported. And that's still a pretty big group. So the charting might not be the greatest. There we go. Down here and download it as a PNG. And use it as you see fit. When you open the chart, to close it, you just hit the X in the corner. It won't affect your report at all. It's just closing that graphic that you opened up. So a lot of the time when I start looking at this, I'll go through, because we're looking, this will be a request from a library. So I'll want to limit it to a cohort based on a couple of things. So I want an income cohort. I'll want a geographic cohort, so libraries around the area, because that's who you're looking at when you're in terms of salary. If you're looking at qualified staff, this is, for lack of a better term, your competition for qualified staff are the libraries around you. So you definitely want that as a cohort. Folks request that all one class cohort, so I'll give them that, but usually also give them the caveat, don't rely on just class. Look at what's around you. Look who's got relatively similar amounts of operating income. So what I'll do with a report like this is, what I'm going to do with it is I'll run it and open it in Excel so I can get an idea of what I need to filter by. So what I'm going to do is I'll open this in Excel, and I will pick a library to create a salary comparison report for, and we'll run through some of the things that we do really quickly. because this could take a long time if you're narrowing it down to just the fields you want to look at and making it easy to understand when you're talking to a library director and they want to give it to a board that can look at it and analyze it fairly quickly. So this is running. This is everybody. And I'm just doing this to get the filter information. So I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to pull this out. Whoops, I went right past. Pull this out in Excel. And you see it's only showing you 10 search results when it comes up. You can change that to all of them if you wanted to. You can see this one's one of 40 pages, so you could page through it if you wanted to. I think it's just much easier to download it in Excel and work with it like that. Okay, so I've got it opened. I got that warning message I told you all about. Get over there. Okay. Oh, one other thing that annoys me when I forget to do it is you see this county 14, 16 cooperative, 24 class. If this was a report that I was going to give somebody, I'd go back in to report settings and I'd go over to options up here and I would remove that item number and save it. For me, I would also remove my location, but I already did that with the filtering, but I'm going to leave that in there just in case a public library were to use a report like this. They probably do want their location in it. I don't very often need my location in. Let me go back to my report here. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to pick, let's do Grant area. Why not? So I'm going to pick Grant area. This is going to be the salary report's going to be for them. So the first thing I'm going to do here, this is just for me to get an idea of the income level that I'm working with. And also you see Amasa didn't participate, but they're still in there because they are an open library. I'm just going to get them out of there because they're not giving me any information. So it's not useful to have them. So now I'm going to go into total operating income. This is one of the filter fields I like to use. So let me just, so smallest to largest. I'm going to scroll down. Actually, I'm not going to scroll down. That takes too long. I'm going to do a Control F and find Grant. There we go. Okay. And got a couple ways to do this. Let me close this real quick. There, 216. Let me go to the top here. I'm going to freeze my top pane just to make things a little easier on myself. Scroll back down. Okay. So there's their operating income. I can either just go and grab 12 from the top, 12 from the bottom, and call that my range. So that would be 417,000 to, and you can see my count showing up over here, to 498. So 417 to 498. I can either do it here and strip everything else off, which takes a little longer, or I can go back to my report. And right in here, if you have two boxes, that means you have range filtering. So I'm going to go 417,000 to 400 and I don't know what I said, 78,000, and save that. So now I've got that filter operating for me. So if I'm just looking at total operating income and I wanted a smaller cohort, I can run that report and it should just return the values in that range. There we go, 18 libraries. And there is Grant. Or again, I can go over here. I'm going to create a new tab, title it income. And some people like to work with this. They don't want to go back and forth and add filters and constantly refine their report. And this is just fine. So all I'm going to do is first I'm going to grab this header, this top row. And then I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to grab I'll grab from Coopersville to Frankenmuth. And come over here and paste it. There you go. Now I've got 33. If I wanted 33 of them, you could trim this off a little bit more. What I've got on the top here, I've got 12 on top. Bottom's my cut off parchment, so I can get rid of these guys. There we go. So that can be my income cohort, folks operating with, reasonably similar income. And what I would do here is, because this is so long, I'm going to end up unfreezing the top row here. But what I will do is take all of my benefit information and I'll throw that down here. So it's a little bit easier to digest. And I can show you a sample, a completed one. So let me grab one of those. Okay, here's an example of a report that was sent out for Kalkaska. So you can see I've got an income cohort, a locale cohort, and then all the class 4s. So what I tend to do is you've got all your positions here at the top with your averages and medians. And then as you scroll down, you've got your director's benefits and what percentage of the libraries in the sample are offering that benefit. There's your full-time benefits and your part-time benefits. So that's for income. And then locale, these are the libraries surrounding Kalkaska. You can see the same information, just a different group to look at. And then you see all the class 4s. So all the class 4s all over the state, same information. So that's generally what I'm releasing to folks when they're asking for a salary comparison report. So that was just one type of report. Let me go back to report settings. So we've got that saved in salary and benefit comparison. It's saved. Save again, because why not? So this title thing that I left blank here, if you put a title in there, it's just going to put a title at the top of your Excel when you export it. So I generally leave that empty. If you like that, go ahead and put a title in there. We should put a description in here. I'm just going to call it a basic salary comparison report. Okay, there we go. So that's a table report. Just one example. I use that because this is one of the most popular ones I get requests for. So I'm going to go back to reports here. And you'll see in the Joe test folder, there's salary and benefit comparison. That's the one we just did. Shows, well, the author is Steve, because I'm in his account. Last time it was updated, last time it was ran. So next year, if you wanted to do this same report again, all you would have to do is open it up and change the period. You could change it to 23-24 when that's unlocked and run it, and it'll run it with the newest collected data. So if I publish this, if I chose to go in there and publish it, what it's going to do is, in fact, I think he's got one published. So all it does is when you publish is it gives you a QR code and a URL so you can share that report out. Go back to the test folder. Okay, let's create a different type of report. So go back to public library survey, and it's going to default on that 22-23 period when it loads up. Okay, 22-23. Let's call this one library services. And at any point you can go back and change these names, remove the reports, do whatever you need to do. Okay, so this time let's do a PI report. So we'll grab some elements that we're going to be able to use for multiple reports. So I go into part 1, do cooperative, county, class, add that. There we go. Let's go down to services. So library services, let's look at visits. There we go. And let's go down to programming and just do total programs. Total number of live programs, total attendance at live programs. Let's do circulation. Just do total physical circulation, then total circulation, which brings in all of the electronic circulation, and then total collection use, which brings in database use as well. And we'll add reference transactions. Sounds good. So I'm holding down control as I'm doing this. There we go. Programs, we've got physical circ, we've got total circ, we've got total collection, reference transactions. We can actually use computer use here would be a good one. And Wi-Fi use. There we go. And there. Oh, and active registered borrowers. There we go. Okay, so we've got those. So if we change this from a table to a PI report and run that, so this is going to be huge because it's all the libraries again. It gives you basically a box for each PI. They have their own element, and you can export this to Excel. Kind of messy with this many libraries included. What you could do here is maybe change it to cooperative, and let's look at Southwest. Just update. So now it'll just show the Southwest libraries. Save that. When I see it, it took me off PI and back on the table. All right, so we're going to save it as PI report. As soon as this stops spinning, it's loading right now, and when we get our save button back, we'll save it. Otherwise, every time you hit report setting, it's going to change it back to a table report. There we go. Okay, and we can run it, and it's going to show you much smaller. There we go. And if we didn't want to see the counties, or if we didn't want to see the membership in the co-op, you could always remove those. Well, you can always remove them from showing without removing them from your report, and I'll show you how to do that. So right here, you've got all these check boxes. If I select this and I don't want county and I don't want to see library class because I'm using I do want that because I'm using all the classes. I uncheck these. Now when I run this report, county and cooperative will not show up. So you do have that option. You can still filter by something without having it show up on your results. There you go. And you can see it's showing the variance above average, below average. And you can see the filters that we use too. All right, so go back to report settings. Okay, and now with these, I would most likely work with them in Excel, but you're welcome to print this out and use this however you'd like. I would probably dump it into Excel and work with it there. This is kind of handy that we've got the PIs that I selected, so I don't have to go back and create a new report. I could save it as a new report. So we'll save this one as a new report because we're going to change types. So save as new report, and you see it gives you a revised, so you're not going to have two reports that say library services, but I'm going to change this to trend. Save it, and you see it still says PI there because I didn't change that yet. So now I'm going to go down to trend PI. So trend PI is going to give you the trend by performance indicator. Trend will give you a trend by library. So I'm going to change this to trend, and you see as soon as I did that, it gives me two periods to choose from. So my start period is going to be my earlier period, and my end period is going to generally be, the newest period. So let's go back 5 years. 17, 18. Okay. And I'll show you what this looks like before taking some of these off, but there are fields in this report you're not going to want to see with a trend. It just doesn't make any sense. So let me run this. So this is from the 17-18 year to the 22 year. You see, your county, that's not going to change. You don't really need that on the survey or on your report results. Same thing in the co-op. There's very little, it looks like no change. Everybody's still Southwest for the 5-year period. Because we crossed a census, you might see some change here. But in fact, looking through here, I'm not seeing anybody that changed. So you might not want library class. Library visits would be very useful to look at. So we got a couple of charting options to look at here. If I look at this one, it's going to look at all of them together, all of the locations. And it's going to give you range data where they were at. See some drop off here. I'm sure that right there is COVID. Let me close this. But I can also look at this by library. So if I look at Augusta Ross, there you go, from 17 to 23. And you can tell right there is most likely COVID. Looks like they're climbing back up. Again, with number of programs, you're going to see holes in this one because of COVID, but also because we changed the way we were counting some of the programming. So you see that you have fairly high response rates here for 21, 22. And that's because it's just, we changed the PIs around a little bit. So some of this is in retired questions, and that's a topic for another day that I can definitely go into, but that's its own can of worms. So physical circulation hasn't changed in terms of how we're collecting, what we're collecting. So again, I can look at Hartford and see what's going on with physical circulation. Here's the median values. Look at Three Rivers. He's coming back. So, yep, you have a couple of charting options. You can look at everybody all at once in a range type, or you can look at each individual library in a trend. So when you do, this is a trend report. When you do a trend PI, it's going to be by the element, not by the line. I can show you what that looks like. It's just going to be a little different. But all I have to do to change between report types is just select the one that I want from the drop-down menu on the report settings page. Right here's trend PI, and all I would have to do is go down to trend. And I'm not going to save, I'm just going to run it. So there we go. Got the years across the top. And again, you could turn these off, county and cooperative, library class. And let's look at library visits for Augusta Ross. So pretty much the same chart, just the way it's displayed is a little different in terms of how it's laid out. Pretty close. Go back to report settings. So graph PI, when you look at this type, this is the only one that you can't export to Excel because it's just building you graphs. So if I run this, again, we're still on Southwest. It's just going to give me a series of graphs. So you have some options here, swap axis, change the theme. So there you go, swapping at the axes. You can hide the legend. Whoops. Change it to a line chart if you'd like. So you have some options, and then you can download it and use it any way you see fit. Go back to report settings. So that was graph. Period comparison is pretty unique. Just like a trend report, instead of having all of the intervening years, if I were to use 17, 18, and 22, 23, it's just going to show me those 2 years. So if you just wanted to see movement over a 5-year gap or a 10-year gap, you could do that with period comparison. So it didn't even need to change our periods here. It's just not going to show us those intervening years. So I'll run that. Then you see I'm not saving it. So when we go back to report settings, it's defaulting back to that trend. If you wanted to change your report type, you got to save it after you change it before you run it. There you go. Again, I would take these guys out. Let's do that real quick. We'll just take out cooperative, county, and class size. There we go. Oh, see, it changed it to trend PI on me, and I wasn't paying attention. So as soon as this loads, I'm going to have to go back to report settings. But there's a lot of, when you're building the report, there's a lot of reports, run the report, back to report settings, adjust, run the report. So don't get frustrated about that. I end up doing that quite a lot. Back to report settings immediately. Okay, change this guy down to period comparison, save it. And I'm going to save it as a new report too. So save. Okay, just taking its time to load. Okay, here we go. So county, class, cooperative, all taken off. And we can see the change between what was going on with library visits in 17 to what was going on in 22, and it'll show you the percentage of the change. You've got a couple of different chart options here. There you go, library visits for everybody. That was 22, so you'll get the similar chart for 2017, 2018. You can see the gap here. So for library visits, a significant drop for most libraries. Go. You know, still recovering from COVID for these time periods. But you'll have that for every one of these data elements. So if you take a look, you can look at circulation transactions. Kalamazoo, you can see there was a bit of a drop from 1.8 to 1.2, 32% drop. So you'll have charts for that showing the gaps for all the libraries. Allegan, Dowagiac, Three Oaks up, a lot of folks down. That's another chart type. So we'll hop out of here. There's this one here, PI gap. Got to be very careful when you create this report because the sequencing here really matters because 1 compares to 2, 3 compares to 4. So when you're putting it together, you've got to be very careful. So we'll build one of those. We're going to do a new report for that. So back to reports. You see I'm filling up this Joe test folder. Steve can go back through and select this and decide to remove it. He can move it to another folder if he wants to. Doesn't matter. So we're going to create a new report. And we're going to start at the top again. We're going to grab public library survey. We're going to leave that period alone for a second. Let's go down to PI gap, select PI gap from our report type. And do programs, PI gap, and save that one. So on this one, I'm going to include some filter information because I don't want everybody. Let's get that to come up. Okay, so let's put in cooperative. Cooperative's a good one. Library class, why not? Okay, so I'm just going to look at TLN And I don't really need library class on there. I'm just gonna look at the TLN stuff. So, but I don't want to see it on my report results. So I'm gonna uncheck those two boxes. So it'll still sort by library network, but I don't need to see library network 73 times on the report page. So now we're going to add data elements that we're going to be able to pair together. So I'm going to go down to library services. And in fact, let's make it a little bit different. Let's go down to, well, library services will still do for us. Okay, library services, here we are. Let's go down to, well, first of all, let's go to attendance. Total number of live program sessions, total attendance at live program sessions. We'll add those two. So that's going to be 3 and 4. Okay, there we go. And now let's look at library collection. Let's do physical materials total. And then we're going to go back into library services and grab circulation of physical materials. That'll be data element 5 and data element 6. We want a total physical circulation. There we go. Add that. You see, we talked about this a little earlier. Physical materials total, when you're looking at this screen, is way above the program sessions and the live and virtual and physical circulation. But what's important over here is the sequence. So we've got live program sessions paired with total attendance, and we've got total physical materials total paired with physical circulation. So now if I run this report, we'll leave it on 2223. So what we run into here is those two total fields were changed this year for physical materials and physical circulation. So we're not getting a value from last year because it wasn't in there last year. We do have live program sessions versus attendance. So we can look at that. And that's giving me the chart for live program sessions. If I click here, it's just going to give me the attendance. What I want to see are the differences. So there we go. This is what you want to see. Live sessions, 1,400 live sessions, but the attendance far outstripped the number of sessions offered. Same with Wixom, same with William P. Faust, White Lake, West Bloomfield. So that's just a handy little chart. It can be useful if you want to make sure at a glance, are my programs doing what I think they should be doing? So back to report settings. So now that we know we don't have any value here, we'll take out 5 and 6. And I'm leaving them on the report because when 2324 opens up, all I have to do to use this report again is go in here and select that next period, and then I'll get values for those too. But for the time being, I'll save it. If I just wanted to look at program sessions, or if I wanted to look at amount of computers available versus computer use in your library, those would be two useful ones to compare against. So that's quite a few in there to choose from. Those are the most common ones used. So it really is pretty basic when you're going through here to create the reports. Again, we start right at the beginning. We're going to be in the Joe Test folder, of course. Create report. Select the collection you want to use. So if you're a cooperative and you want to look at the cooperative annual survey, you can do that. Click on that. Actually, anyone can. And then you'll see that the data elements reflected below are all the data elements on the cooperative survey, not the public library survey. And it's just a matter of selecting the elements you want on your report and holding down, just clicking if you want to do one at a time, or holding down control if you want to do multiple selections that are separated by data elements. Or if you want to grab everything, click on the top one, go down to where you want to cut off, hit shift and click, and it'll grab all of those and you can add them. Pretty basic. And again, this set of data elements is in the same order as on the library cooperative survey. You can do the same thing with the Braille and Talking Book Survey, the LBPH annual survey here. Again, it's just pulling the data elements for that survey in the order that they appear on the survey when we collect it every year. Go back to reports. So that's report creation in a nutshell. Any of these can be, well, they can be saved. And if you think this is a report you're going to use year after year, you just go in. I clicked on library services. All I have to do is pick the next year. If I'm doing a trend or just a regular PI report or a table report, you don't really have to make any changes. Now, every once in a while, you'll run the report and you'll have a blank for that year. That can mean one of two things. Either the participating library didn't fill out any data for that one, but if you see a blank for all of them, it means the report data element has changed. And what I'll try to do on those, when I retire a data element, I try to put retired right in the data element, so you'll see that ahead of time. And I'll continue to do that. So it's very rare that it happens. But that's pretty much it for creating reports. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm gonna go back to reports. It's showing you right here what type it is. There we go. The collection it's coming from, we did all public library survey today, and this was the only one we wrote a description on, but you can go back at any time and write descriptions for any of these. To update a folder, if Steve would like to keep this folder, I'm sure he doesn't want it to be Joe Test folder. You just click on update and you can change the name right there. If any of these reports aren't something he wants, he can always click on them and remove. Once you've removed all of these or moved them, if you wanted to move them over to your report tab, you can do that. Once this is empty, you can also remove the folder. So you have those options too. And you don't have to select them one by one. You can click here and remove all of them at once if you'd like. And that's it for me. If there are any questions, you can always email me at Hamlin, that's HAMLIN, J, the number 2, at michigan.gov. Thank you.